everyone. It's a privilege to have with us Brigadier Honorary Dr. Arvind Lal, a Padma Shri awardee, and a person, a pioneer, a visionary who has one of the largest lab networks in India, with us on the as our guest for the very first show of Tête-à-Tête with Vikram Anand, an initiative of Voice of Healthcare Network. Sir, we welcome you on our as a guest on our show. Thank you for accepting the invite. It's a pleasure to have you, sir, with us on this show.
Good evening, Vikram, and thank you very much for getting me on this show. And I'm privileged to be here. I've been on your show even earlier in many of your meetings. So this is a new kind of a meeting, Zoom or virtual, digital, but well, that's a new norm of things to come.
Yes, in fact, Dr. Lal, I would have idly invited for this conversation show Tête-à-Tête with Vikram on over a cup of tea with you. I mean, that was the ideal format which we wanted, but maybe we will have that later to, given the circumstances we have today, we are going to have this electronic Tête-à-Tête for now, but we certainly look forward to having another conversation with you over tea. To give a start to and give a perspective, sir, it's where you are coming from, having been a fine Navy NCC cadet, to being a soldier, to being a clinician, to being an entrepreneur, business entrepreneur, with having established one of the largest lab network, if I may say so, over 216 labs and 3,000 collection centers spread across the country. And beyond, they're going beyond that, now being an author of a book, Corporate Yogi. That's huge, sir. I mean, and that's where maybe I would want to start our conversation today, as to take us. I mean, while we there is much more to this, I know, and I've done some homework around that, and I'm going to kind of pick your mind on those subjects and your other passion areas as well. But to start with, please tell us something about your early professional journey. And when did that spark came along for you to say, hey, this is one facility lab which you had in Delhi, and from there to where we are today? So would love to hear about this journey. As I said, from an NCC cadet, one of the finest NCC cadets, then to where and how your professional journey came along, sir.
So, Vikram, it all started in the early 60s, and I was supposed to go to the National Defense Academy. And as you've already stated, I was the best cadet NCC Navy in the modern school, Barakhamba Road, New Delhi. And I was looking forward to joining the NDA as a naval cadet. And after passing out, I would have joined the Navy. And my passion was to fly planes in the Navy. And I still maintain that passion. You can see this aircraft. This is the brooch of Sukhoi 30 MKI. So I have kept up my interest in the aircraft. And so this is what life is. I was not destined to be a pilot, a fighter pilot in the Navy. And it was discovered that I had in my left eye a minus number, or it was in decimals at that time, but the Navy would not have accepted me as an executive officer, and later on there was no way I could have become a fighter pilot in the Navy. So my career actually, finished off at the age of 15. So I'm the earliest retirees from a defense military career. And then, of course, I did not have biology in school, and it was at the explicit suggestion of my brother-in-law, who was a young lieutenant in the Navy again, and posted to the National Defense Academy. Okay. He put it in my mind that why don't I become a doctor, because I did not have biology in school. So mine were the days when there was there's a 9th, 10th, and 11th in school, and
yes.
we all had to choose our arts or sciences in the 9th the moment we came in, and when we supposing we chose science, then there used to be maths, physics, chemistry, or with that English, of course, and with that the choice was either biology or geometrical drawing or geography. So because of my earlier inclination to join the Navy, I did the correct thing at that time, and that was to take up geometrical drawing instead of biology, because in the geometrical drawing, you start drawing lines, and they help in navigation. So that's what I thought, that's what I would do. But again, it was not to be. And my brother-in-law, put in my mind that why don't you try to become a doctor? So, well, let me try. So I came back to modern school. I met my principal, and who said that, well, that it was not possible. And then I reminded him, I said, many years ago, somebody had, done this thing exactly. So then he was Mr. Kapoor, M.N. Kapoor was my principal. He was a very eminent educationist, a very well-known world figure, I should say. And he was very just. And he said, yes, even at that time, now I remember, we had to take special permission. So the special permission was taken. And I started studying biology. And he said that the special permission was not in his hands. It was in the hands of the Delhi Higher Secondary Board. And you won't believe it, Vikram, the permission came just 1 week before my final exam.
Wow.
And lo and behold, I passed. And
that you had to.
I became a doctor. And well, that, went away I got out of the mindset of being a military officer and becoming a pilot. And later on in life, when I was nearly 60 years old, the Army, the President of India gave me an honorary brigadier's rank. And I have this,
I was wanting to, I was interested to know that come about.
So I am a guy who should have joined the Navy. And I am interested in flying aircraft. So I had an inclination towards the aircraft, or say the Air Force. And lo and behold, I ultimately get to wear an army uniform. So this is, this is a tri-services representative in front of you, right to the core.
So probably I'll come to the armed forces, and I'm sure having been so close to armed forces being so close to your heart and across the three services, I'm sure you would be having a lot of other strategic interests and views across, and I'm going to come to that but a little later. So I will let you continue on how this transformed into being a clinician and a teacher, and then how the entrepreneur opportunity or the perspective came into being. So I think we'll cover this for now, but then I'm quite excited to come to that.
So, as I told you, then I became a doctor. I got admission in the Armed Forces Medical College. And I was careful not to, sign up for joining the army or the armed forces, because I had finished my military career, as I just told you.
Yes.
Right? So there was no point in my, joining the armed forces as a doctor, because my inclination was towards, the rail fighting army. So I did not sign up for the army. And in my class, there were, 120 students, out of which 100 boys and 20 girls. Out of 100 boys, 50%, 50 of them were to join the armed forces, and the other 50 were like me, who could come out in the open. And out of the girl had to join the armed forces. So subsequently in AFMC, 5 years later, all such people like me, they were given short service commission, no questions asked. Right. And 5 years after that, which means 10 years after I had joined, it became a permanent commission. So now there's a permanent commissioning ceremony, a passing out parade held in AFMC, and everybody's in uniform, and again the MiG-29s from the Pune Air Base, they take off and they come and salute the passing out batch, and actually they tip their wings when the passing out parade is happening or taking place. So that's about the Armed Forces Medical College. And I went back to the AFMC to study further for my post-graduation in pathology, and they appointed me as a lecturer, what we used to call demonstrator in pathology at that time. So I was teaching the young students. I was also the warden of the boys' hostel. I had 43 medical students. You know, I was looking after them. And I was also doing my post-graduation. So it was again 3 in 1. Yeah. And once I finished, I did not fit. I mean, after my education, I was planning to stay on in the AFMC. I was quite liking the job. And
the affinity to armed forces got you to continue with your academic opportunity at AFMC, and obviously the students around.
Yeah, so it was a very nice, you know, a hand in glove kind of a relationship. I was doing pretty well, and except for the untimely passing away of my father, who was 61 at that time, so rather young for a doctor to pass away. So I you know, had to come to Delhi in an emergency, and I took over the lab.
And he was a pathologist too. I mean, that's what the inspiration for pursuing clinical pathology.
Yes, he was also an officer and also a doctor, but from Pakistan days. Okay. So my father was brought up in Rawalpindi, and he went to the Lahore Medical College, which was known as the King Edward Medical College. And it was one of the 10 best. There were only 10 medical colleges in India at that time, undivided India. Okay. So after passing out in 1939, he joined the army as a doctor, and served at the Afghanistan border, which is Waziristan, Afghanistan border. And he was in the regiment of, you know, at that time, Captain Manekshaw. And it was known as the Frontier Force at that time. And it became, you know, Gurkhas. But when my father joined, it was known as Frontier Force, and Manekshaw was his senior. My father was a young lieutenant, Manekshaw was a young captain. And after that, the entire regiment was posted to the Eastern Theatre, which is Burma. That is where the Japanese were trying to invade India. So Manekshaw and company, you know, posted there. My father stayed back in Waziristan, in Wana, and then later on did pathology in the same Armed Forces Medical College, which I later went to, the same place, and came back. Yeah. And after some time, it was partition time. And his English bosses asked him that, would you like to stay on in the army? So he declined because at the age of 31, he had to cross the border with 31 dependents. You know, there were 5 brothers, 2 of them had children, there were sisters, the sisters' children, etc., etc. So he knew that he would not be able to do justice in an alien land. Yeah. You know, these people were from now Pakistan, and they were coming to Delhi, which they had never been to. So life had to change, and he, you know, under the burden of responsibilities, he did the right thing, and he opened this lab in 1949. And since 49, this lab has been running. So 77, when he passed away, I took over I was in the FMC. And at that point of time, we had just one lab. And after a few years, it dawned on me that when I saw samples were coming to me from all sorts of places, All India Institute and from LNJP and from Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital, that why shouldn't I think of, you know, making a collection center myself in a distant colony, and from where I was under tremendous pressure by people who were coming from there. I remember the name of the patient, one Mr. Bhalla, whose daughter was a professor in Miranda College. And she would accompany her father, who one day asked me, Dr. Lal, I have to come all the way from Model Town to get 3 times in a day, once for blood sugar fasting, one for PP, and then again to get the report. So why don't you open up a lab in Model Town? So that's how this idea, you know, got fixated in my mind. And then I tried, and then people would not give me, you know, 150 or 250 square feet of space. Dr. Lal, once you get in, you will never get out, which is probably true.
Yes.
And so then I had to think of something which later on got to be known as franchising. Yeah. So I requested them. I said, well, I have to take the place, but if you don't want the rent, they were very allergic to rent being rent.
Delhi was very well known for people taking houses and not then letting it off because of rental issues. So you turned it as an opportunity from a business perspective with them.
Yes, I was very frustrated that, and at many places, this is the, we know you, Dr. Lal. Once you get in, you won't get out.
Yes.
And secondly, people who wanted to do me a favor, they said, but first you give us what is known as, a pagadi, a security. And I had just started my career, so I had no access to such kind of money. And that, in any case, was, money which was not recorded.
Right.
That's my principles and ethics. So I declined. And then, of course, this idea came into my mind that, what is now known as franchising, it just started by, my asking them a few questions, and they agreed. And it has worked so well. And today we have over, 2,600 collection centers all over India.
Wow.
And majority of them are all franchisees. And they all work hard, and they are all very happy. In fact, I get requests every day that, Dr. Lal, please appoint us as a franchisee in your setup.
Okay.
So that's a very nice thing. It's a nice feeling.
Yes, no, and I can so relate to it because of your facility and your center in Gurgaon. More than anybody, my father vouches for that. That if there is a question mark on a particular report, he says, get it done from Dr. Lal's Path Lab, and I get my test results from there, and then I'm happy with whatever it comes to be. So,
so kind of you.
I can so relate. I can so relate to it, sir.
Really.
So, but tell me, Dr. Lal, this is very interesting, and this is how models come out of pioneers like you who experiment with such formats, and then it becomes a kind of a structured model for everyone to follow. But tell me, as an entrepreneur also, I'm asking you this question. What was the toughest moment, say from first to 10th center you could have built very well or you expanded well? How was then expanding from the 10th or the 30th or the 50th center to the 100th center? Were there any tough moments you may want to describe or reflect upon in this journey? You've come so far, sir, and it's for everybody, the viewers as well of this show, for them to learn from these experiences of yours and as to how you've come along.
My first remembrance of a real tough moment, of course, as a private entrepreneur, as a pathologist, you are racing against time, and there is a guillotine time in the evening when the patient is standing outside your, room waiting for his report. So we are the guys, who have to deliver on time, and we have got to, get it right the first time, and we've got to get it right every time. What you call TQM. Total quality management, and therefore we can do anything, but we cannot not give the report to the patient in the evening. So that, of course, is a challenge many times. Sometimes the bijli used to go off. Sometimes there's something else, is a malfunction of an instrument. So, but let me tell you some turning points which I remember, or now I can laugh about it, but that time it was no laughing matter. And it was in 1982 that first it got into my head that I must now be able to buy an auto analyzer. An auto analyzer is usually in bike. Now, of course, you have many more. And that would, sort out my work, do it, very, very accurately, and do it quickly. Right. So just to give you an example, there are two tests in liver function test known as SGOT and SGPT. So I remember the SGPT used to take us 1 hour of incubation, which is, after you put all your, the reagents, etc., the patient's serum in it, blood in it, and then you go to incubate, which means in a water bath. And after that, you take everything, basically in these chemistries, there is a changing of color. A color appears, and the density of the color, is proportional to the ingredient which is present. For example, if you are having very high blood sugar, somebody is having, well, there at that time the color used to turn dark blue. So anyway, so these are kind of end point kinetics, whatever. I'm not getting into that. So the procedure would take about 1 hour, and if there was an outer limit of that calculation, If the limit had been crossed about 60 or so, then you had got to go back to, 0 point again. And then you have to dilute the serum 1 in 2, 1 in 4, 1 in 5, depending upon what you thought it would be. So one test could practically take away the whole day.
Yeah. Wow.
And imagine when these auto analyzers came, we could do these tests,
Wow.
a fraction of, I would not say in just 1 minute, it's about 2 to 4 minutes. So that was the kind of a speed. So when this auto analyzer had to come, and for this, I did not have the money, I must tell you. It was costing at that point of time, 32,000 US dollars.
Oh, wow.
And a dollar was 10 rupees to a dollar.
Okay.
So 3,20,000. And on top of it, there was a 60% import. And to get the import license, it used to take you nearly 1 year. It was a very kind of a big system which was there. And you had to go to many government departments, starting from your health department, Director General of Foreign Trade, Chief Controller of Imports and Exports. But the starting point was that you got to arrange for the money. And money I didn't have. So the whole thing, the landed consignment would have cost me 5 lakh rupees. And I had never even seen 1 lakh in my life at that point. So I had the bank, if you have seen our lab on Hanuman Road, still there. And the next to it was, Canara Bank. So my mother, who used to come accompany me to the lab every day. So I asked her, Mom, don't you know these guys in the Canara Bank? He said, yes, we used to have an account here, and there used to be a young manager who was very bright. And I said, do you remember his name? So she remembered the name, and I went and found out. They said, well, that gentleman got transferred to office, many years ago.
Okay.
But you'd be happy to know now he is the big boss of the bank.
Oh, wow.
So I saw my first silver lining,
Yes.
he was he used to be our erstwhile neighbor.
Yes.
So I said, well, next time whenever he's in Delhi, would you care to, please call me, just give me a shout, I'll come running. And he came and he asked me, a very good counter question. I said, Dr. Lal, I expected you to have come to me earlier. He was even bigger than me.
Yes.
And his name was Mr. Ratnakar, who is now running a bank in his own name, Ratnakar Bank.
Word of it.
So he became the managing director of Canara Bank in no time, and you can understand why. So he had that missionary zeal to help people like me.
Yes.
I was one of those guys who wanted the money. I got the money. And then, of course, I ordered the instrument. And when the instrument arrived, there was, some discrepancy in the former invoice or in the invoice. And I showed it to my clearing agent, and the clearing agent said, well, Dr. Lal, it is better that you don't come with us for inspection. I said, what is that? I said, I want to see my machine. Right. He said, don't worry, we'll manage all that. Because the moment you come, and this is not, a very nice kind of a thing which they have given the invoice, and you, the customs agent, the customs department will be liable to ask you for another 70,000 rupees.
Oh my goodness.
Because of that discrepancy in accessories and, spare parts or something like that,
Oh, okay.
I said, what do you want me to do? He said, you stay away.
And we'll manage.
And we will manage. And and you jugaad in India. So they managed. And after a few days, when the machine came, I was quite, unpleasantly surprised that there was a pulley carrying it on its head. And this machine should have, weighed at least 50 kilos with a full packing, etc.
Wow.
And I knew something was wrong. And when I opened the consignment, there were only spare parts and accessories. That's it. And I said, where the hell is the machine?
Yes.
And nobody knew where the machine is.
You would have out.
Now, in the eyes of customs, I have taken out the machine. Because the clearing agent said that everything has been found according to invoice, etc., etc., and now became a big, kind of a problem. And now, where is the machine? And I just told you, Vikram, that it used to take about 1 year to get the import license.
No, absolutely. The red tape is, of course, there at to the maximum.
The import license is completely debited. It's gone. And I have paid the customs duty, which was nearly 1,80,000, if I remember correctly. And that is gone. And there's no sign of the main machine.
You would have completely freaked out. I can I'm getting those goose pimples just listening to you.
So yeah. So now started the program, and I mean, I called the company's representative. They didn't know. They said we have shipped it from. It was coming from California, Sunnyvale in California, and they had no idea. In those days, there was no fax machine, so we went to Eastern Court, post office. That was the main post office those days, and we sent a what do you call it?
Telegram? Kind of.
It was not a fax. It was
Telegram was. Then.
No, not Telegram. It was tuk. Anyway, name will come to me, and it was 2-page kind of a thing which I sent them, and there was no answer. Now comes a twist in the tale, and after that it was the month of December. So I was going to my ashram, and we'll talk about my ashram later. And my Guruji was there, Babaji, Baba Hira Khan, who was supposed to be an avatar of Lord Shiva, and he keeps appearing from time to time, etc., etc. So when I was faced with him, I gathered enough guts. I said, Babaji, this is what has happened. That I had ordered for the first time in my life a machine, and the machine has not arrived, and everything from my side is gone.
Oh my goodness!
And my mother explained to me, she said, in this much money, your father had constructed 2 properties in Delhi, and you should not have been this kind of callous. And my Babaji, he looked at me and he said, he's speaking in Hindi, and he says, "Agar is वक्त आपके डॉक्टर साहब आपके पिताजी जिंदा होते, तो आपके जूते से मारते." So I said, why is that? He said, because you should not have listened to the customs clearing agent. You should have done the right thing. And you should have gone. You would have easily made out that there is no machine which has arrived. So I said, but please tell me, where is the machine? And then he looks at me and smiles. He says, machine to wahan se chali hi nahi hai. He knew everything.
He knew.
And I said, yeah, so the third eye, Lord Shiva's third eye, he could see everything. And I said, then? He says, but by the time you reach back, the machine would have landed. But now to get it out from customs is not going to be an easy affair for you.
Because the papers have been done. They're according
everything to the was done. And plus the added charge against me is trying to hoodwink the Customs Department of India by first saying that you have taken away the machine, and then latching back onto them and saying that there's no machine. Now this customs is not going to be agreeable, and I was, going up and down old customs house, the same road which goes from Delhi to Maruti's factory, old Gurgaon road, and old customs house, new customs house, they were all there. I used to go there, and I spent 4 months of my time. Ultimately, I was, hauled up in front of the customs collector of Delhi. He was a gentleman by the name of Mr. B. Dulka. And he told me, he says, Dr. Lal, what you have done is unthinkable, unheard of. And then he told me his powers. He says, my powers are that I can fine you 3 times more than the landed price of the machine. I can just, confiscate it. And I said, what is the third option? And he said, the third option is that I will levy just a 20,000 rupee fine on you and let you go. So as they say, yeah, so it was very nice of him, and the company representative was with me, and he owned up. He said, yes, by mistake, it was short shipment. So I got to hear about these kind of, transshipment, short shipment, etc., depending on the customs, the import license. Anyway, so that was my first, brush with the authorities, and it was a pretty nasty one.
So that's great. I mean, this is really brings to light as to it's not been an easy ride for Dr. Lal as how the world sees it. You have had your challenges in this journey, but it's good to know that this is how things have to be managed. But most importantly, what I got from these experience of yours was that if you are a valued person, you have the ethics and those values on the right side, everything comes around you. People come around to help you. People are genuine, like the bank person and the concerned exports person, imports person. He saw the good in you and he wanted to kind of help. So what I also learned from here is that, Dr. Lal, that, and I'm now moving the discussion to the next space of where I would want you to reflect, is that I see a lot of your values you have learned and you've been inspired by your parents to do what you've done, be it armed forces or the values which you hold. But I'm sure there is something more than parents. Parents are always there who inspire us. But who beyond, and you mentioned about the Guruji which you have, but what in life has, or who in your life are the people or the who have inspired you in being what you are, sir? And to that, I'm going to then link it to, was corporate yogi? That's a very interesting phase of your life where you've also authored that book, as to how that has come about in terms of your kind of writing that book on spirituality. And that is very important for professionals today, or corporates today, I may say, to bring in that life and work balance. So I'm connected the two questions. What's inspired you, or who inspires you in life beyond parents, and how this book came about?
See, it is, first thing is that it is something which is built inside you, that you get to know that this thing is right, and this thing is wrong. If you remember, there is a saying that right is right even if nobody is doing it, and wrong is wrong even if everybody is doing it.
Absolutely, sir.
So there are no two. So there is something which is known as ethics and morality. And being a doctor, I think these are even more important. So people come to you when, you know, they are really not feeling well, you know,
Yes.
and you cannot do anything unethical.
Yes.
So, you know, giving a kickback to a, you know, doctor or something like that, that was unheard of. And I also started a new trend when I came in, that I would cut every receipt. In those days, income tax used to be in the order of 60% or something. And it was a done thing that you could hoodwink the income tax, etc. I think doing whatever it is. And I think with passage of time, income tax has come down. So I was the first one who never bothered. I said, please cut every receipt. So I had these two things, that I will never give a kickback and I will cut every receipt. And come what may, I will go my way.
Mm-hmm.
So those were the kind of things which I had learned in childhood, which were ingrained in me. But if you ask me who my idol is, that there are lots of, you know, people who are very successful. But I would, you know, say that Thomas Alva Edison is a kind of a person who actually will always be something great for me. And of course, these days we could have said Steve Jobs, and we can, you know, Mark Zuckerberg, etc. But I would say Thomas Alva Edison, because had it not been for Edison, who made the light bulb, you and I would have been conducting this, you know, interview with lanterns.
Absolutely.
And maybe the diodes inside, or whatever triodes inside the electricity circuit would be there. So the thing which I would like to, you know, inform your viewers, share with them, is that Edison was an engineer, and he made the light bulb. He made so many things, but he made the light bulb. And he failed making the light bulb 9,999 times. The 10,000th time, he actually got it. That was a eureka moment for him. And see what it has done. It, you know, lit up the entire world.
Absolutely.
And you can imagine the joy in New York. I've seen an old movie, or maybe it's a documentary, in which they actually show that, you know, he presses the lever, and the whole lights, you know, light up for the first time in the world has ever seen.
Beautiful.
And he was also a very smart kind of a businessman, unlike many doctors, etc., and unlike many people, you know. So he came up, and he had got all the patents, he got all the PRs in him, and he always was a successful businessman. So he was an entrepreneur, he was a technical guy, a techie, and he was a businessman. So these three things, and he was a very hardworking chap. Don't forget the 10,000th time he got it right.
Wow.
So you should never give up. If your heart tells you that you're doing the right thing, so kindly please keep on doing it.
Right.
So that is one. Yep. And the other idol is in my life is from yesteryears, and I'll take you back to Lord Ram and Sita, and it was Sita ji's father, Lord Janak, Raja Janak, who was a very benevolent kind of a king, and he was a very knowledgeable man. He could think. He would have discussions on philosophy, on spirituality, on religion, and he was that kind of a an environment he was living in, and he would accept and taxes were to be paid to the king, but he was not using it for his own personal comfort and luxury. He would just take the money and keep it like a bank cashier. He counts thousands of rupees in a day, lakhs of rupees, and he just puts them into the locker, and that's it. And then so he would then use that money for the benevolence of his subjects, and he would give them everything. And the last thing I would like to add about King Janak is that I was told by my guru, that he was equivalent to 10 ICS officers. Oof. So right now we are dealing with IS officers who are very bright, and the brightest of the bright get admission or become IS officers. But ICS exam, Vikram, not many people knew, was held in England, number one. Okay. Never held in India.
Yes.
And it was during the British Raj. And it was tougher to get into ICS than to get into the royal service in England.
Okay.
So the brightest of the bright, and he was equivalent to 10 ICS officers, Raja Janak. So my adulation is for him. I wish I was born at that particular point of time. I would have told you something more about him.
But I see that you've imbibed some of those values and which has inspired you so much, and you are reflecting it in the way you've grown your business, you've grown your teams, and the way you've kind of shown those morality and ethical values you've reflected in the way you do your business, sir. So I think it's very evident, and I can now connect all of this parts which you've reflected. And you mentioned about your Guruji, and I can certainly, and now I've read about it, but would love to hear more about the spirituality factor, which you touched upon right now a bit, and how that motivated you to reflect it in form of a book. I mean, so this must have been a collection over a period of time, your thoughts, which you have been able to bring it out in form of a book now, and as an author now.
Yes. So what happened was that I spent I met Baba Hira Khan, who was an avatar of Lord Shiva, and this is written in the Brig Samhita, which is there in Hoshiarpur, that in this Kalyug, a saint will appear who will be known as Hira Khan Baba, but actually he'll be an avatar of Lord Shiva. And the second thing about Hira Khan Baba, they wrote, Hira Khan is name of a small village which is about 35-40 kilometers from Kathgodam. It's in Kumaon. It's in Uttarakhand. It's in Kumaon district, but it's close to Kathgodam, and Nainital district is known as. And he would appear and reappear at his own sweet will. So that's another very great thing about this saint, that he could materialize his body and dematerialize it at his own, And so the first Hira Khan Baba appeared in 1920s or 30s, and he was, 1820s or 1830s, and was there till 1922. He was last seen walking on the Kali River, which is the border between India and Nepal, and disappearing in a ball of light. And then for 50 years, he was adrishe, which means that he was not visible to his followers, to his saints. And he appeared after another 50 years in 1970 in the same cave in Hira Khan, which is the village. Har Khand, short form became Hira Khan. So he had no name. He was known as Hira Khan Wale Baba, and short form became Baba Hira Khan. So I had the pleasure of spending 7-8 years with him, and he taught me a lot of, good things, spiritual things, which India stands for. India is a country where spirituality is our forte. And it is, every Indian has this kind of a spark inside him, which is very, very godly. Is that we don't go inside and we go more outside, and now TVs are there, channels are there, everything else is being there. So we have actually stayed away from there, but that doesn't mean those things have disappeared. So I'm trying to, explain to your readers what Hirakan Baba's teaching was. And I asked him one day, I said, Babaji, tell me that person like us, who is man of the modern world, etc., how do we get close to God? And he thought for a moment and he said, Karm Yoga and Jap Yoga. So Karm Yoga I understood, because like so many people, we have all read about Gita, that do your, the work which you are supposed to do. If you are a doctor, be a good doctor. If you are a broadcaster, be a good broadcaster. If you're an engineer, so on and so forth. But Jap Yoga I did not understand. I said, this, sounds, does not, click with me, because sitting in a small corner doing Om Namah Shivaya, or doing Ram Ram. So I asked him, I said, what about meditation? Because I'd heard so much of meditation, and he said, well, what you are saying is right, Dr. Lal. Meditation is very good, but it's not meant for a person like you.
Mm-hmm.
I said, why is it not meant for people like us? He says, because you don't have the time, number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, you won't find the guru to teach you meditation.
The right way.
So the right way. So, and he explained to me, and which we don't have time to do all that. So it has been inculcated in us when we were even in school, and you go back to school days, that for success, that time only examinations, it is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. So I would like to say that 1% inspiration, which is, in addition to Karma Yoga, Jap Yoga, that helps you in achieving that the other 99%. So ask Tendulkar how it feels to out 99. You want to reach 100.
Mm.
So therefore, I am saying that it is perspiration and Karma Yoga you have to do.
Yeah, that's
and for the modern man, for if you are seeking, if you're a seeker, you want to go towards spirituality, then you've got whoever your God is, whomever you believe in. So you have to do the constant chanting of his name. In my case, I am a Shivite, so Om Namah Shivaya. So that is what I have to do every day, and a time will come, hopefully, that I'll have more time on my hands and I can still do it further. So that's what I would like to say.
That's beautiful. That is a lot of message to all of us in terms of how to enhance your work life and your professional achievements by spending some time towards driving your inspiration through such meditative initiatives.
And I got an answer also from from two other sources. So after this conversation, I came back to Delhi, and lo and behold, after 2 days, the front page of Times of India, there was a picture of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and he had been sued in US courts. And I read, I said, why is he a godman from India? And he had promised his devotees that he'll teach them transcendental meditation. And his US devotees sued him in court because he only, made them or taught them how to jump like quote unquote bunny rabbits. So they sued him. So that was, something what Babaji had told me, that meditation is not for you. And the second thing which I learned also was, in my profession, I've taken thousands and lakhs of people's blood. So one such person who was very close to me was also another Guruji, but from the Sikh, background. So he was Babaji, he was in Gadaipur, and his name was Baba Virsa Singh, a very realized saint in his own way. And one day I came, I went to take his blood, and he was in meditation. And so I sat down with my friend Dr. Hira, who had taken me, and he opened his eyes slowly and he smiled. And he tells me in Punjabi, he said, "Oi, aime ki vekh raha?" So I was nonplussed. की देख रहे हो? कि तेरे पीछे शिव खलोता होया डमरू लेके, और ओदे नाल हनुमान भी खलोता होया. And he's telling me in all seriousness, and because I pray to these two gods every day, so I was not surprised. But hearing it from a realized soul, it was that elevated me.
Beautiful.
So then I bent forward. I put my matha, as you say, this feet. That's मेरे लिए हुक्म की है. And Shiv and Hanuman are standing there. मेरे लिए की हुक्म है. What? And he gives me big pats on the back. He says, "Come karija, na leja." So keep doing your work and keep chanting God's name. That's so. It again came back from.
It was endorsing his Hira Khan's
Baba's absolutely. And if you meet any person from the Sikh, kind of religious formation, they will all tell you the same thing. So whatever it is, but for people like you, me, millions of people like us, we have to do our work, do it ethically, cleanly, and remember God, whichever God you believe in, but remember Him, chant His name. If you're a Ram Bhakt, do Ram Ram. If you're Shiv Bhagat, Om Namah Shivaya. If you are a Sardarji, Satnam Vaheguru. If you are Christ, I know Jesus Christ mantras, etc. So all that.
So this corporate yogi, was this a culmination of these experiences of yours, which you have now been able to try to share it through the book, or would you like to reflect something about how corporate yogi came about, and you as an author that evolved, and what you would like to share with the corporate world from a spirituality perspective beyond what you've just shared, sir?
So let me talk about my professional life. So the professional life is, to quote world's number one, excuse me, lady entrepreneur, who's Oprah Winfrey. So somebody asked her, that what is, madam, what is the secret of your success? So she gave a very straightforward answer. She said, the secret is that there is no secret. Just keep doing your work better than your competitor, or better than the next man, she said, and you'll automatically become good. So about my own profession, I came in at a time when, pathology reports, even a blood report, used to be a topic of discussion in the evening when, friends were sitting down together. I mean, to get a good blood sugar report, was a challenge those days, because it was all done manually, as I just explained to you a few moments back. So I tried to change all that, and thank God I was successful. And I brought in quality standards here. So one thing is, which is, again, you cannot run away from that, is that you must be good in your work. So you had to, I brought in so many things, so many tests, so many test systems. I brought the first IT systems in 1986 in medicine in India. And I got the first, computer program, software program written, who was also, one of my seniors from modern school, but I had never seen him. He was so senior, Dr. Gurdial Singh. And he had come back from America. So he wrote the first program. The first program in lab information system was written in India, in my lab. And I sat across 8 months. And I didn't know computers and he didn't know medicine, obviously. So we were able to work together, and we got it going. And the whole storage of that system could be done on a floppy disk. 20 kilobytes was the entire program. Can you imagine? And so 20 kilobytes, sorry, was the first IBM computer which I got. And that the whole memory was 20 kilobytes. So the program was even lesser than that.
Wow.
So all these things kept on happening, and just kept on doing the right thing at the right time. And kept moving forward. And I can truthfully say that I never thought I'm going to become an entrepreneur. I'm a doctor, I'm a pathologist, and pathologist, profession is the, backroom boys kind of a profession, in medicine. And I've known even of many hospitals who forgot to make a pathology lab. And then they said, "Nee, theek hai, wo basement mein ko 2 kamre de do." Nobody was proud to be a pathologist. But being me, I was very proud of my profession, and I brought in all these new tests and new things. So, and even All India Institute doctors used to tell, all the ministers used to go to them, and they would come to me then for blood tests. And the All India Institute doctors were never hesitant in telling them that to meet doctors, come to us, but for testing, please go to Dr. Lal. So I made a niche for myself.
In the industry, you created a benchmark for the test laboratory diagnostics in the industry. Yeah. And that's something which was revolutionary for people to see around, and for others to kind of come around and creating those networks. So that's certainly there, sir. You have been a visionary and a pioneer in the diagnostic space, and I think across the practitioners, professionals, and the government have been seeking advice for you on similar lines, because they get to gain a lot from your learnings and your experience to build something more robust as a healthcare system, ecosystem, from a diagnostic perspective for the country. So, I mean, this is, and this is where your book, I think, and reflecting some of your learnings and experiences for the corporate world, I think helps a lot through your Corporate Yogi book. And that's great. And so happy to note that you have been a champion in your profession, but you have been able to take time out for the love of life, for the love of enjoying your work, in terms of being able to get this book out. And then there is more. And this is now where it becomes more juicier and interesting. We've seen Dr. Lal now cover aspects of clinical journey, being an armed forces person, but a bird also tells me that you are a nature lover and you capture nature through photography. Please tell us something about that, Dr. Lal, if I'm not wrong, because I've heard that you are also an avid photographer, and you love nature, and it goes on to your next generation as well. So we like to hear a little more about that, about your passion, and how I guess your son is also into photography. Please tell us more about that.
It all started with my late father, who was also a very good photographer, of course amateur, and he gave me a camera when I was, probably 9 or 10 years old, and it was a small Leica camera, and which was, very good camera those days. It still is, and it had a 35mm film going into it. So I learned my basics, from that Leica. And in my school also, I had a choice to take up music as my hobby and photography. So I chose photography, and I actually used to develop my own films and, print my own prints and put them in the enlarger and make bigger prints, etc. But those are years, which have gone by. Now nobody talks about film. Now everything is, on the chip, and you can, shoot, and you can erase. You can press up a button, you can send that picture, everywhere. So the excitement which used to be there, that now when the color film came in, that time when I was in school, there was no color. Color film came in, etc. And then, we would send it to Kodak or wherever it used to go, and it used to come back, and then the prints used to come, and this used to take something like 15 to 20 days. It was not so you were, your heart would beat, you were always thinking, I hope the whole thing is not blank.
Yes.
But things have happened, I mean, something is, there's a leak in your camera. Something is, when you're winding it, rewinding it, etc. Something can go wrong. Anyway, cutting a long story short, so those were my, initial forays into photography. And I have been taught photography by a world-class genius, I would say, late Mr. O.P. Sharma, who was my photography teacher in school. So he was a very big man in his field. And so that set me off, and I became a sort of kind of a coach to my wife, because my wife one day announced that she wanted to go on a yatra to in 1999 to Kailash Mansarovar. So I asked my wife, and she's also a pathologist, Dr. Vandana, and she said that she would be going, and I said, I have you arranged for a camera. Which camera are you taking? So she told me some nondescript camera, click 20, click 30, something like that. I said, no, you please take my Nikon camera. And so she said, no, wives, and especially when husbands are offering them something, they don't normally say yes the first time.
Take it very
So
easy.
I said, look, it's not difficult at all. And I put it on, on a particular setting, which is, I think, auto. And I said, all you have to do is just make sure that the sun is always behind your back. Sun is never in front of you. And it had a zoom lens. I said, you can, and because she was a pathologist, she knew how to focus.
Yes, that she could do.
And I said, don't change anything in the camera and the setting. Everything will be fine.
Then we are looking at Dr. Lal, a coffee table book coming from ma'am and your son, both of them printing, putting together pictures. I mean, following you as an author, I think now this is calling for another coffee table book from ma'am, from those pictures from those absolutely religious places which most people may not have even visited. And if now, as you are explaining, I'm sure those are beautiful captures which she has made, and now your son has taken it to the next level altogether. So I think,
in a lighter vein, I can say, I said, when I or you or even my wife, if we go into a jungle and we are lucky to see a lion, and we will bring back a picture of the lion. But when my son Anjane, we call him Anjan, when he takes a picture of the lion actually poses for him. That is the difference between us and him.
Yes, he connects, and I think that connect, sir, is coming. Having heard you now for so long during this conversation, I see that. I think that connect, those vibes are coming through your value systems, which you have transferred onto your son Anjan, and I think that connect he's able to relate further to the nature. But I'll just close this session by saying that an incredible journey, an amazing person what you have, you are, sir. It's been a pleasure having you on our very first show, Tête-à-Tête with Vikram, as a part of the VOH Network initiative. So it was wonderful talking to you, and looking forward to actually having another set of conversations over actually a cup of tea sitting next to you. So thank you so much for this. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.